כל מה שהיה זוכרת, האם עוד נכונה לך? ימים יהיו דקה שעוברת, שנים עוד יחלפו עליי.
My name's Andy Golub. This is the space. The space is a gallery, performance space, community getting together place built from this nonprofit organization which I run called Human Connection Arts. And we are doing everything from musical performances, drum circles, poetry, the famous psychic performances, which are just wonderful. And we also today have the opportunity to have a conversation with Rabbi Reuben Modek. And I've known Rabbi Modek, Rabbi Reuben is what we usually go by, I guess. And we've had a conversation. We've known each other for, I don't know how many years, 5, I guess, maybe more.
More than that. How old was Forrest when
10 years old.
Yeah.
Well, that would be 7 years. Yeah, 7 years, yeah. Mm-hmm. And Rabbi Reuben is just a very, a spiritual person, a person who's on a genuine journey, a person who's not afraid to sort of show that he's on a journey, and also a person that I would say is a holistic thinker and a person who likes to gather knowledge to help along the journey. And recently, Rabbi Reuben wrote a piece or an essay. It was actually pretty long. It was, I don't know, maybe felt like it was 15, 20 pages.
It's down to 10.
Down to 10.
Yeah.
I think it's a great read.
Yeah.
I think it's some of what Rabbi Reuben was writing about was it was all about COVID. Some of it was about the maybe more of the psychological impact and the way we deal with it. Some of it was more very much about the physical aspects. It all dealt with American culture, and I think it was all very relevant. And then while we were talking about it, then I started saying, well, and also that essay you wrote was great. And then Rabbi Reuben said, yeah, let's talk about that. I'd like to talk about that. And so that's the basic intro. And I will start off just asking, a very basic question. And so what do you find is something that's I don't want to say distressing, but of importance to the moment, at this particular moment? What do you think is something that we really need to address in a pretty serious way right now?
We talked about this in the car a little bit, about I think that we're in a culture that doesn't recognize spirit enough. We're told sometimes that spirit is not real. What's real is, what real is what you can count, what you can quantify. But spirit is about quality, about quantifying, right? And I think we need to address our being too timid about the role of spirit in our lives, especially in crises, and especially in COVID. I hear a lot about statistics. I hear a lot about research. I hear a lot about, it's efficacy, things like that. But I don't hear about how is spirit involved with preventing and healing COVID. And that's what I'm interested in.
Thanks. And I may skip around a little, but the one of the things that you definitely talked about in your essay pretty thoroughly. You had said to me that you were, you had a bunch of times where you were visiting a doctor, and you had some bad experiences where you felt that the doctor you were maybe not questioning their motives, but outright felt that their motives were not really to serve you, and it changed your whole approach towards physical health.
That's right.
Can you tell, give us a little bit of the story so we can kind of understand the context of some of the things that happened there?
Sure, you want to hear that story? Sure. Okay, so I went to see a urologist. I had bladder issues, and when you see the urologist, the nurse sees you for longer than the doctor sees you.
How long ago was this? I mean,
2006. So, what is this, like
15 years?
Yeah, 15 years ago, right? And they do a lot of tests, so he took a lot of measurements of different factors of my biology, around whatever I was talking about. But I didn't feel like the doctor really knew who I was. He knew my statistics, he knew everything in a quantitative kind of way. But he didn't have time for me. I was one, this assembly line. I had one of many patients. I mean, thank God for him. It was great. He's a busy man, and so we did one test and another test and another test, and I maybe saw him 3 times in all. And he was very happy about what he was seeing. The results were good. I mean, I have symptoms, but he's encouraged about the results. And then at some point he wanted to escalate the testing. And he tells me, either we can do this at the hospital, it was a biopsy. Either we'll do it at the hospital or we can do it at my clinic, right? And I said, wait a minute, you're telling me that everything is good, looking good, everything's looking good, and now you want to go ahead and do a biopsy. So he says to me, well, it's incumbent upon us, I'm like, this is quote, it's incumbent upon us to eliminate all possibilities, make sure there's no foreign cells, So the lab tests are good, everything you've done, we did a cystoscopy, we did all these things. And he's telling me that so we can do it at the hospital, we can do it here, but, maybe it's better to do it here. And he was really kind of pushing. It was sort of like promoting the idea of doing it at his clinic. And I started to feel like, what is this about? I mean, it's like you don't even know who I am, You didn't even ask me if I want to do further tests. You're not consulting, you're just assuming, that I'm going to just go with the program. But I want to be educated. I want to be understanding. I want to understand why you're telling me everything is good and you're wanting to escalate the tests and do it more and more. So he says it's incumbent upon us. I started having this funny feeling. The feeling was he has his routine of tests, right? He's going to put me through. And he's trying to make it work in such a way that he maximizes convenience and profit. He didn't say that, but I could feel it, And I said to him, I'm not sure I want to escalate. I'm sure I want to do the next test. And you're talking to me as if I had already agreed. It was sort of like, he didn't ask me, what do you think? Do you want to do this test? It's kind of like it was implied, that we're doing this, And I said, wait a minute. Let me think about this. So I got a little resistant, and something about the system, something about the way this was working, didn't feel healing, didn't feel honoring. Not that I don't honor his expertise, and he's got the degrees, he's got the experience, and he has a good reputation. I went to him because people recommended, and he's well known in the community. I consulted with another, my chiropractor knew him, and said, oh, this is a good guy, I can go to. But something did not feel right.
And this led to you eventually seeking out different voices in with regard to health or your health, or
That's right. So I was not new to holistic healing. I mean, I've known of, I've seen a holistic chiropractor, and I've seen different, I've seen a naturopath at one time, and I've actually had seen a homeopath before, so I wasn't like wedded to the medical conventional system. But right at that time, I was actually a little. Two things. First of all, my symptoms were very uncomfortable, and I had a real need, right? I needed to resolve this. And the second thing was that when he started talking about foreign cells, you know what foreign cells mean? It's euphemism for cancer, right? And this whole like secrecy talk, it's like, so say cancer, for crying out loud. I'm an adult, you can talk to me. It's like foreign cells, it's like, give me a break, it's going to a kid, So all of a sudden he's mentioning foreign cells, and I'm getting fearful. I'm getting concerned, And so I talked to a friend about this, and she said, I know this homeopath that I swear by, and you should go see him, So, and she told me her story. She took her child when the child was 3 years old, and he, he gave her a remedy, and the thing, healed really quickly. And then she said, well, I have some issues, and she, and she trusted him because he helped her child. Started with him. She had been with him for a long time. Recommended. I went to see him. Well, I went to see a homeopath, and.
So what's a homeopath?
Homeopathy is a holistic form of healing.
Is medical though? It's medical, like it's not.
It was homeopathy was started by a German medical doctor in 200 years ago or so. So this is like in the 19th century, right, in Germany. So it's a form of healing that's based on the principle in nature that like heals like. And it's developed into, homeopathic remedies are basically all kinds of substances that are diluted, and they're administered as little sugary pills. And the homeopath can do. Now, the thing with homeopathy is that it's completely opposite than the medical system, in the sense that it does not work on a singular symptom. So if I go with the bladder issue, they don't have a remedy for bladder, but the homeopath will ask you, what's your symptomatic picture? What's going on with you generally, right? And so in any given moment of time, you may have headaches, you may have a bladder thing, you may have a skin issue, and you may not sleep well, and you have all these things, right? And then the each remedy is somehow influences a symptomatic picture. And that's how the healing works.
And so how did it go when you met with the homeopath?
Well, the thing with the homeopath is that I was suspicious. First of all, I was scared because, this whole cancer thing. And I was a little suspicious of it, but came recommended, so I had ambivalence. It's like on one hand, I get the recommendation. On the other hand, I'm like, I don't know, I think I need the experts, but I don't like the expert I talk to, and I'm in this ambivalent place. So I told him, I was honest. I said, look, you came recommended, but I want to learn about this, So he said to me, Reuben, look, the doctor is trained to heal your bladder. That's what he's trained to do. He's going to give you recommendations. He's going to give you, medicine or, whatever methods he has, or surgery or whatever, right? And that's what he's going to do, And if you're lucky, you're going to go back to where you were before. You won't have the bladder symptoms. And I said, sounds good to me. I mean, that's exactly what I want. He says, no. He says, the contract with me is an entirely different contract. You're going to come to me every 6 weeks, and in 10 years, you're going to be healthier than you've ever been. That's what he said, right? You come to me every 6 weeks. It's all different. You're not coming, now you're coming to me because you have a complaint, but you're going to keep coming to me And together, we're going to work on your whole health picture. It's not going to happen overnight, but in 10 years, you're going to be so healthy that you're not going to believe that, that you can be this healthy. And something about that spoke to me. I like that, So we talked for 2 hours. My meeting with him was for 2 hours. I started going to him every 6 weeks, and it was always 1 hour meeting. So he got to know me. He got to know my marriage. He got to know my work life. He got to know my social life. He got to know about my son. He got to know everything. He knew me. He really knew me well. So when I came with a symptom, it wasn't about let's go in there and tackle. It's like the football. The medical system is like tackle. We're gonna fight cancer. We're gonna tackle this issue. No, it's like, oh, let's see the big picture. Let's see the context of this. And that was, So what was also because I got to talk to him a lot. I learned a lot about a new way of thinking about health, which is a holistic way. So you look at the big picture. You look at everything, how everything interrelates, right? And as you're looking at the big picture, maybe you need interventions on different levels. Maybe the lifestyle things. I wasn't sleeping well. So maybe you have to work on your sleep. Maybe, work on all these things together if you really want to be healthy. Because just getting rid of bladder symptoms doesn't mean you're healthy. It means you don't have bladder symptoms, it's going to be coming out somewhere else. And that made sense to me. And I also like the attention. I like the fact that every time I came there was a full hour. Every patient who came there was a full hour. And that was my kind of really looking at, because one of the things I wanted to talk about, Andy, is paradigm shift. And I believe that we're in the middle of a paradigm shift, right? So
let me just ask you this, because I've heard the term paradigm shift before, and I think maybe different people have different ideas of what a paradigm shift is. Some people say we're in the age of Aquarius and things like this. Can you just very clearly explain, when you say we're in the middle of a paradigm shift, like what does that really mean, like specifically in our world?
Absolutely, yeah. And thank you for that question, because that's really important to me. And one of my hopes is that we walk away, from this conversation. I want to walk away learning something from you too. But what I'd like to offer you is that we are in the midst of a big change. We call that paradigm shift, but we don't necessarily, those are semantics. But there used to be, for the past, let's say about 100 years, 150 years, there used to be a certain culture, a certain attitude in Western culture, in America and Europe, right? So we were living in a country that is sort of the influencer, the world influencer in terms of thought, technology, lifestyle. It's not for naught that people are immigrating by droves to America. We're not immigrating to Saudi Arabia. I don't see, Americans going to, other countries in the world other than for vacation or to exploit resources, right? It's like, but people are coming to, because we're living in a culture that is an influencer in the world, right? And we live, so instead of saying paradigm, I'm going to say culture or philosophy, right? So there's an old paradigm. There's a paradigm that helped create life as we know it, with our comforts, with our technology, with our the foods we eat, with the lifestyles we live. All those things are created through the creativity and the exploration and the thought leadership and the research and also the tensions, the struggles, the political struggles, right? Where the particular tensions to name two tensions in our society today, it's feminism and racism, right? All that is creating a culture. And this is happening in America and Europe, right? So there's an old paradigm. So what I'm saying by paradigm shift is that whatever we've been doing for 150 years in developing our lifestyle, also religiously, synagogues, churches, everything, it's like have developed to a certain point, and that's where we're at. But now everything is turning and changing because we're hitting the wall of the pathology. Whatever we created as a Western culture, there's the good, but there's the shadow side. And the bad is what we're hitting. And Einstein said, I write this in the article, Einstein said that you're going to never evolve, you're going to never move forward if you use the same thinking that created the problem to begin with. You need a new thinking. Does that make sense? Yes. If you're creating a problem out of a certain mindset, and then you come to the problem with the mindset that created the problem, you may be changing the furniture on the deck of the Titanic, but you're not changing anything. You got to find a new way of thinking about it. And that's the shift into a new way of thinking, into a new culture, into new attitudes, new organizations, new institutions, it has to be, we still have institutions that are racist, patriarchal, and in a moment, in the context of COVID, so I'm mentioning racism and patriarchal because that we know about, But I want to talk to you about something that's a little less known that has to do with medicine, with health, and specifically with COVID. So just to answer the question about what a paradigm shift means, it means that we can't move forward without changing something very fundamental in the culture, because otherwise nothing's going to change, and that change hurts. Because some people don't want the change, because it's going to mess up, the way they see the world. It's going to mess up the institutions. It's going to mess up the politics. It's going to mess up the economics. And in religion, as a rabbi, it messes up our sense of tradition too.
Can you tell me a little bit more specifics about your thoughts about this paradigm shift?
Yeah. I'll be happy to, and I wrote about that in the article. Also, I think I was really. It's very important to me that for me to understand it, for other people to understand it too. So, when things are changing and shifting, obviously there's going to be a lot of extremism and negativity. There's going to be friction, right? Because people don't want to, because what you said about the right and the left, rising with, extremes. Well, how about we go specifically to, to COVID, to how this is, So this has been a big revelation for me. In the past year I've been thinking and writing and exploring a lot about this, and that's why I wrote the article. And I think what's become clear to me, it's a great opportunity now that there's COVID and we're living under this like crazy, unusual times and the restrictions and everything. It's forcing us to think and to experience things we have not experienced before. And one of the things that it's becoming clear to me is that just like when I told you the story about me going to the doctor and then finding a homeopath, I think as a culture we're going through a similar process. And the process is that we're throwing at COVID everything we've always thrown at disease without thinking. But COVID is asking us to think. And what we're doing is we're doing statistics. We're doing research, and we're measuring efficacy. I'm not even sure what efficacy exactly means, but it doesn't matter. I just know that, if it's more efficacious, it means that according to research, the statistics, there's some effect. It seems to work. And I think that we are going down a narrow path, and there's a wider path to go down. And this is the paradigm shift. Bear with me, and I want to try to take us through a few steps. It starts with history. About 150 years or 200 years ago, before and during what we know as the Industrial Revolution, all of a sudden, as a culture in the West, we discovered mechanics, technology. We discovered that we could take material in nature and manipulate it and build parts and assemble the parts together and create amazing things that nobody had before. Cars, trains, planes, toasters, refrigerators, you name it. You all know we're surrounded by these things. We think that God gave it like manna, but no, God did not give it like manna. At some point, there were geniuses in the culture. There were path blazers. There are people who wow, we can create these things that make our lives so much safe, convenient, luxurious, easy, efficient, right? And we created factories that build these things. And we invented the assembly line. We can make many of these if we just get smart and put lots of pieces on an assembly line, and people are sitting next to it and they're putting it together and it works, So that was the beginning. That was a paradigm shift. That was a shift from Middle Age, the Middle Ages of horse and buggy and, plowing the field with the one knife plow and all that, to wow, all of a sudden this burst of ingenious technology. And our culture, our mentality, our thinking has become influenced by that. And we created a story. And the story is called scientism. Not science, scientism. That is the culture. And that means, what scientism means, I'll tell you very briefly, is technology is good, measuring and quantifying everything is good, because that's how engineering works, and researching things in a lab is good, and everything is random, everything is material. There is no God. Human spirit doesn't really matter. Human spirit is really just chemical interactions in the brain. I'm giving you the extremes of the culture, but all these things are pretty foundational values of the paradigm we're living in, right? We have the power to change, fix, or heal anything by manipulating pieces. You have a heart problem. I'm going to go in, I'll open your heart and put a stunt in there, all that. But the patient becomes like a machine. We all become like machines on an assembly line. Our body's only body parts can be replaced. It can, in fact. I'm not saying these are myths, but something got lost in the process. What got lost in the process, and this is, I'm not putting down science, I'm putting down scientism. In the article I write a lot about that. Scientism is sort of like a new religion that has three values, three components. And I'll explain very quickly. One is reductionism. You can understand something by taking it apart, and if you understand each part, if you understand the parts, if you understand all the molecules in a material, you will know about the material. If you take a molecule apart into its atoms, you'll understand the atom. If you dissect the body, this is how doctors become doctors. If you dissect the body and look at, I was, by the way, a paramedic in the military many, many years ago. I had a little bit medical training. I know about that. I went through pathology training. So I watched the body being dissected, Dissect the body, and you'll know about the body. you know. But the truth is that you cannot teach a person to heal by having them dissect a body. The best they can do is heal a dead body. If you learn about the body on a cadabra, the best thing you can do is heal a cadabra. If you want to heal a person, what do you need to know about? Yeah, what's the word? Is it enough to know about how the cadabra looks from the inside to heal a person? A live person?
You need to know about life.
You need to know about life. Spirit, right? A healer needs to know not only about the organs and the cells and the molecules and the atoms. A healer needs to know about the life, the living being, the spirit in the person. So the scientism has three biases. One is reductionism, breaking everything into parts and thinking that you can know by knowing the parts. Two, materialism, that everything is material. Life is just material. Psychiatry is at such a crisis because anytime somebody has, from neuroses to psychosis, let me adjust the chemicals in the brain, But that does not see the person inside that experience.
I'm sorry. I had this one concept of many years ago where it was like the aliens came to Earth and they saw the people and then they were like, oh, what are these things? And then they wanted to know about us, so they took us and they cut us open and they separated all the pieces and then they, sort of like what you're saying, but of course they know nothing about what a human being's like, because a human being is about their fears and their hopes and their desires and their loves, and it's like this purely spiritual, that's what we really are.
As a soul, right? So, well, that's exactly the point, Andy. And the third thing in scientism, and I'm not saying science, please, let's make sure that I'm talking about scientism. It's like Judaism, it's like socialism, the ism, right? This is the ideology that's formed around science. Science is a good thing. Science is a method, it's a very good thing. It's very smart. But the culture around science is, we said reductionism, we said materialism, and the third thing is isolationism. We talk about, let me isolate a problem so I can understand it, right? Isolation means isolation is at the extreme of individualism, like all of a sudden, the Industrial Revolution idea of a person is that we're all pieces in an assembly line. We're all workers in a corporation. We're all pegs in the machine. We're all like wheels in a machine. It's like there's something like so that isolates a person. So isolationism. So those are the three things. Isolationism means that people in this paradigm need to fight to get to the top, because I'm going to get to the top of whatever the American dream is, and compete for it and fight to be on the top, but I'll be stepping over dead bodies and I'll get there and then I'll be isolated at the top. It means that this individual in our modern technological scientism culture, we don't value community enough. We don't value our connections. That's why feminism is so important, because it brings in the feminine part of relationships, of connections, right? So we're in a culture where the American dream is this ideal of the individual person making it to what? So that's scientism. Now here's COVID, right? And we think that we can throw more chemicals at it, more medicines at it. Look at what we're doing. We're isolating people. This is the universe telling us, or you can, if you want to say God telling us, look where you're at. This is you. Isolated individuals, quarantined, locked up in your places, this disease, as it were, if it's a disease, is coming to tell us that we are stuck in reductionism and materialism and in isolationism. So the shifting paradigm is that maybe looking at the virus as something we need to kill or isolate ourselves from, they don't say kill, they say eradicate, right? That's what they think. Eradicate the virus. We're gonna vaccinate the hell out of it. We're gonna have these antibodies. We're gonna put chemicals into the body, and those chemicals are gonna trigger our immune system, and the immune system is gonna kill the virus, and we're gonna eradicate the virus, and we're gonna get rid of it. Maybe that's a scientism. That's our cultural approach to it. That's what the CDC is doing. By the way, I'm not saying it's wrong, but is it enough? It's more of looking at patients as cadabras, as chemical systems, But the fact that grandma died alone and nobody could kiss or hug her or be with her for, weeks before that, what does that say about us as a culture? Is that healing? Did we heal grandma? You see what I'm saying? It's telling us something about the paradigm that is now imploding on us.
Yeah.
Okay? So here's the shift. So I told you what's wrong, right? I told you what's... Now, by the way, I'm not saying science is bad, and I'm saying the doctors is bad. If, God forbid, I get into an accident, my arm is chopped off, rush me to the, to the arm and shoulder surgeon, because they have the technology to put my, my actual hand back in its place, and probably I can have function of my hand again. Our medieval ancestors didn't have that luck. So thank God for medicine. Thank God for the science and the technology that allows us to do those things. But that's not enough for dealing with COVID, from what I see. So the old paradigm means more surgery, more chemicals, inventing new vaccines, inventing, isolating, putting plastic around people, wrapping people up with plastic, all that. That is the old paradigm. That's all good because we know, because the science of physics tells us that the little particle, and this is all industrial revolution particles, we see the world as particles. There is a little virus that's going to jump from my mouth into your, into your system, God forbid, and then you're going to be positive. So we want to prevent that. It all makes sense, right? But there's a problem with it. That's old paradigm. Question is, what's the new paradigm? I want us to sit with the question. I have thoughts about that. So Gerald, I'm glad you said that. And Andy, with your permission, I'd like to respond to that because that's a really good segue into, because you said from a social, there's a medical perspective, but there's a social aspect and there's an economical aspect, and so this is a good segue into the new paradigm. And this is very similar to what happened to me personally. So I read, I'm talking about, when I went to the medical doctor, then when I went to a holistic doctor. The new paradigm is called holism, right? In the old paradigm, we separate. Remember, we're the reductionists. So we have the medical aspect, the economical aspect. We have the social aspect, the psychological aspect, the biological aspect. I mean, all environmental aspects. We are trained to think in aspects. Holism is, how does it all tie together? Because you see that you can't affect one thing without either affecting other things or neglecting other things, right? So can we have arms that embrace it all, that see the big vision that there's got to be the psychological and the psychiatric and the social. You see what I'm saying? The new paradigm is holism. And I'll tell you when it came to me. I heard an interview on the radio. I write this in the article by Dr. The reason I'm looking here because I want to quote the name correct. Sounds like a Persian name to me, very exotic. Dr. Mozaffarian. He's the dean of the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy in, I believe it's in Massachusetts somewhere, right? So his field of research is nutrition, food and food policy. And one of the big things that he researches, that's his career, is obesity.
Is what?
Obesity.
Oh.
And he talked in the radio and he said, half of all Americans are obese or overweight. And they found that when COVID cases were coming into New York hospitals, the largest indicator for vulnerability for COVID, guess what it was? Because you know that people are vulnerable because of what they call comorbidities, right? So somebody has asthma, they're vulnerable. If somebody has diabetes, they're vulnerable. If somebody has hypertension, they're vulnerable. If somebody has kidney disease, they're vulnerable. Guess what the highest they did? Back to statistics now, right? They did the statistics and looked at patients that were hospitalized for COVID, and what was the indicator that was the most predominant for who's vulnerable for COVID? Obesity.
Yeah.
Right? If you're obese, you're at risk. That measured the highest from everything else, not asthma. You would think asthma because, it affects the lungs. So he said, if that is the truth, when he looked at that, he said, if that's the case, man, we're screwed as a culture.
Everybody is obese.
He didn't say it that way, by the way. I'm using that language. Yeah?
Because somebody
Well, and you know what he said? He said, now, by the way, obesity doesn't mean necessarily being fat. Obesity means being, they call it metabolic diseases. Metabolic disease means that your body doesn't know how to process food well. Like your ways of processing food are not good. It's not about being fat. You can be fat, lean, but it's about your body doesn't know how to process food. One of the things that happen is that you put on extra weight. Some people are extremely, extremely extra weight. That's obese. So 1 out of 2 Americans, he says, if that's true, he calls it a pandemic, a fast pandemic on top of a slow pandemic. He says obesity has become a pandemic in the past 40 years, right? Very slowly, because of this is a culture. It's because what we eat. It's because of food deserts, about what's in supermarkets, about the trash that we're being sold as food. And what he said is that their research shows that with metabolic, that means digestive issues, he says that only by change of diet, within weeks, you can have major improvements. This is research. This is proven. This is not like your health food store promotion kind of thing, But they researched that, right? So you take somebody with the metabolic issues, maybe not with asthma, maybe not with kidney issues, things like that, but with what they call obesity, if you change the way you eat, within a few weeks, you see measurable medical improvement. So if half of the population is vulnerable to COVID, and if what we did was asking people to change what they eat, and within weeks that would improve their vulnerability, so what's more efficacious, a vaccine or a diet plan for the nation? Now that is holism. That's holism because it looks at the whole lifestyle. It's not looking at the virus. There's two philosophies in how to approach this. One philosophy is the pathogen. That's the virus. That something is attacking me, supposedly. Supposedly something is attacking me. But the other is the host. Is the host able to have a virus come visit without falling apart?
Right.
And he's saying that maybe the whole big medical CDC, humma, and there's a lot of economical incentives. By the way, I don't want to get into that, but it's a whole industry of making vaccines and the pharmacological industry and all that. I don't want to get into that right now. I want to assume good faith and everybody is we're all acting in good faith and nobody's out there to make money. I want to assume that. But put all that aside. But why is our approach to disease focused on the pathogen, on the thing that's supposed to be supposedly attacking us, and not focused on the host? So the new paradigm is we are not living well. We are living in ways that are stressing our biology to such an extent that we become sick like this. We become sick from COVID. We become sick from flu. We become sick from, we become sick with cancer. We get hypertension. We get, obviously, metabolic diseases. All that is lifestyle. What are you going to do? Throw pills at it? That's the old paradigm. That's scientism. You know why? Because what's happening is that in the old paradigm, or in the current paradigm, the paradigm that's now shifting, we say, we want freedom. The individual person has to have freedom to do whatever the heck he or she wants. Eat whatever you want, do whatever you want, sleep, not sleep, whatever, be careless about your lifestyle. You see that in colleges, college kids are the ultimate, colleges go out and like, my son just graduated college a couple years ago, and it's like, oh my God, this is how you're living? I will die if I live like you're living, I mean, you know what they do in colleges? I mean, it's like, what they eat. I'm not talking about the drugs. Supposedly nobody did drugs. Yeah, right. It's like, my son told me we have a very open relationship, and drinking. I mean, this is how you're learning. This is what you're learning in college. Mm. This is the life you're going to live. This is the dream that you can drink as much booze as you want, take as much drugs as you want, eat whatever you want, stay up all night, party. That's your entry into
adult life.
That's your entry into adult life. We are a sick culture. We are not taking care of the host. And if we are going to choose the old paradigm philosophy of like, there's an enemy out there, there's a germ, a virus. Now, by the way, viruses move through us all the time. It's really how we manage our system to be in tune, in harmony with nature. Virus is part of nature. We're part of nature. The new paradigm is coming back to Mother Earth, to nature. God put us on this earth in a biological earth. We are by creation and by evolution, both. By the way, no contradiction between, Hashem and evolution. That's a bogus. That's an old paradigm dichotomy. It's a false dichotomy. There is a creator and there is evolution, and that all works together. That's not the topic for today. But we are coming after having gone through this whole industrial revolution and the whole technology and the whole, wherever we're at right now. We need to come back to remembering that we're biological creatures within a biological world that has to work in harmony. That's a new paradigm. But at least once a week I call my mother. And every time she asks me, did you take the vaccine? By the way, I'm not telling you yes or no vaccines. Take vaccines if you want to. By the way, we may conclude in a moment, so I want to conclude with actually practical things that I think are advisable to do. But the new paradigm is we need to honor that we are biological creatures. We're part of nature. We need to learn to be in harmony with nature, and we need to treat our bodies as natural, strong, wise systems that treated well, not treating our bodies like my college son treats our bodies. We're a culture we treat our bodies like that in more or less ways, you know. We need to focus on the host, not on the pathogen. The pathogen is a myth. You know, if we lived well, viruses and germs would affect us much less. You know, those things are easy. They're proven. You know, when Dr. Mazafarian tells you that they have proven that just by changing diet, you know, within weeks you can have your indicators. This is scientific. I'm talking about reductionist, you know, quantitative. They have measured the indicators for health in people. And within weeks, you know, you go on a healthy diet, organic, mainly plant-based, blah, blah, blah. All, you know, I'm not going to get into the details, but you go on that within weeks, you're coming back because nature is restorative. You know, nature restores herself. We allow our bodies to restore ourselves. With God's help, we're going to restore ourselves.
So is there something specific that you would want to leave people with in terms of, like, I mean, these are, first of all, these are really great, you know, great points. And I think that we all hear about these types of ideas in different ways. And it may be, hopefully, as we all listen to, you know, you speak about these things, it's sort of maybe, you know, the next time we do hear about other more holistic concepts that, or the food or whatever, that we, you know, are more receptive to it, or we just carry this along with it. But that being said, I mean, are there specific kind of things that you would want to leave people with that's very, let's say, actionable, like things that we can do that you'd want to leave people with? Absolutely.
I have 6 points, and I actually have them in front of me. I'll tell you what the 6 points are. So point number 1, and this is specifically about COVID right now. So we went big picture into paradigm shifting and into different ways of thinking about crisis and the world we live in. In the holistic thinking, it's all connected. Mm-hmm. Racism, feminism, ecology, nutrition, health, all connected. All connected. Spirit, spirituality, respect. The title of the article, by the way, is Respect and Reverence for Getting Better. I recommend that you read it. So, number 1, start with social distancing, masks, washing your hands to avoid contagion as much as possible. This may be helpful. Get your vaccine if you think that's what you need. That all may be helpful as a starting point. Number 1. Number 2, engage with a holistic health practitioner. Find a guide who's a holistic health practitioner. Obviously, I had good experience with homeopathy, but it could be an acupuncturist, it could be a nutritionist, it could be a complementary medical doctor. There are medical doctors who practice complementary medicine. It could be a chiropractor. I also see a chiropractor as a holistic chiropractor. I don't care what their core discipline is, but if they're holistic, if they're going to ask you about your total self and address your total self, you're on the right path. If you go to somebody who is going to ask you about your one symptom and throw a pill at it, I think you're wasting your time, my personal experience, unless, God forbid, you're in such an acute, life-endangering situation, then you want to go to the emergency room. Okay? Get yourself a holistic practitioner. Have a regular engagement. See them once a month, once every 2 months. Not when you're feeling unwell. Do you maintain your car? Do you change the oil? How come your car gets better treatment than your body? Regular. I can't stand people who treat their car better than they treat their body. Maybe you're New Yorkers, you don't have cars, but I don't know, whatever, you know. Engage with a holistic practitioner. Go holistic. Treat yourself like God sees you. God doesn't see just one piece of you. God sees all of you. Social, everything, the whole thing. 3. Spend time daily in nature. Spend time daily in nature. You have to be in nature to be healthy. Yeah, whatever. Gardening. Yeah, spend time in the community garden, in Central Park, walk, do whatever, be out. There's a term for this. It's called nature bathing. Do nature bathing daily. 4, exercise generosity. Help people with cash or kind. You have to help other people. Generosity is good for your immune system. You have to help people. You know why? What in the old paradigm is this? What in the reductionism is this breaking? Remember, there are 3. Reductionism has isolationism.
Yeah.
Connect with others, help others. That's good for your immune system. It's gonna. Andy talked about elevating the spirit. Parasism, right? Got to elevate your spirit. Help somebody. Number 5, walk, run, dance daily. Got to move your body. Got to move. This is where I want to, really do honor to Asian people. You see Chinese people in the parks. I've seen it in, in videos how they do Tai Chi in the park. You got to move. We live now in a world where we sit in front of a screen for too long. We need to move. And the last thing, number 6, is actively cultivate respect for life's mystery. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what sect you are. I don't care, if you believe in Jesus or you believe in Muhammad or you believe in Moses or you're in some, I don't know, whatever. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. Take contemplative times daily for meditation, for prayer, for alone or with community. Every day, stop whatever your business is for a little bit. The principle is fall in love with the beautiful, valuable spirit that you are. It doesn't happen by itself. You have to pay attention to that. You have to say, I love me, God's love me, I'm precious, I'm valuable. If you don't tell yourself those messages, you know what goes down? Your immune system. Obviously, it makes God happy if you want to talk religious language and, and makes you a better person. But you know what? You won't be healthy. You won't be healthy. You maintain your car and you don't maintain your spirit? Give me a break. So, we're moving to a new paradigm. It's holistic. And it takes, for COVID and for health purposes, these are 6 things that need to be part of a person's daily practice. Within weeks, you will see changes. I wanted to, there were 2 points that I was hoping that people would go away from today. One is the paradigm shift. We talked about extensively, but we just talked about the spirit. How spirit is part of healing. And Andy, you asked me when, to come speak here. I remember you said, well, talk about how the spiritual part is involved. And I thought about that a lot. And so just to say that the spirit of a person, the energy of it, the quality of it, the expansiveness of it, the strength of it, right? Which you could say is love, right? The more love you have, the more spirit you have, right? Mm-hmm. The more, that is what makes a healthy container. You know, the body is important too, but without the spirit, right? Without cultivating, giving room for the spirit to grow as big as it can, right? That is such a basic. I'll tell you a quick story. I many years ago, somebody recommended I go see this Chinese acupuncturist. I was very sick. I had the flu, whatever. You know, I was really miserable, and a friend said, "Oh, go see." I went to this Chinese. He was a recent immigrant from China. He was a real thing. You know, a Chinese man from China, 2 years in America, could barely speak English. You know. And I came to his clinic, and he was going to do the needles on me and all that. And I'm like, you know, my body was hurting, and my spirit was gone. You know, and I come and I lay down on this thing, and he's how are you? I could understand what he was saying. He had this strong accent, right? And he had me lay down, and he puts the needles in me, and he's yapping away. Yapping away and laughing. And he takes, the cotton balls, he puts before they put the needle in you, they take
alcohol.
a cotton, with alcohol, yeah, they rub you with alcohol with the cotton. So he rubs the cotton ball, and he throws the cotton balls, there's a little wastebasket, and he's throwing it like basketball, he's laughing, and and I'm thinking to myself, I'm half dead, and this guy is like, how dare he, laugh like that, and throw cotton balls, and yap away, and I don't even know what he's saying, and and asking me questions, and he had like a broken English, but with the accent I couldn't understand anything, And the guy was so happy, and I was so like half dead, right? By the time I left his clinic, guess how I felt?
Great.
I felt great.
Wow. Yeah.
Because he had spirit, and his spirit came into me. You could say, if I don't want to, if I'm not going to get too, I want to be a little more, scientific. His spirit affected me. If we don't want to get into like, oh, spirit came into me, and like that. But after whatever time, so he put his needles and he did his thing, but what healed me? All that healed me, but what healed me? His spirit. The guy was funny as heck. He was happy, He's just happy man, And he sees a half-dead person, and he doesn't let it affect. He doesn't let it affect him. He doesn't. Oh, you're suffering, but I'm happy. I'm good, So something about the CDC can throw as many statistics and as much science at vaccines and therapies and and all this stuff, but what about helping people's spirits? You don't get healthy if you don't help the spirit. You got to pull the spirit up, right? There's a very, very important part of that. Okay.
Rabbi Reuben, thank you. It was great to see you. Thank you for coming. Guys, everybody who's been here, thank you for being a part of it. And let's have a round of applause. Very nice.
האם עוד נכונה